The blood moon rose like a blade. Its first line of light cut through cloud and stone, striking the high court terrace where the nobles had gathered to toast a reign built on victories and silence. Goblets flashed, wolves straightened. Somewhere beneath their breath, the old bell found their courage and began to toll. Caliph Dravaris felt the mark over his heart flare, cold, then burning, then cold again. For 7 years it had been a dull coin under skin. Now it bit him like a vow remembering its teeth. "Your Majesty," murmured Torvin Caelwyn at his shoulder, voice even, eyes on the horizon. "The omens are favorable." "They're late," Caliph said, and nothing in his tone betrayed that his ribs had become a cage too tight for breath. A hush rolled through the court. It wasn't the moon that stole their voices. It was the woman walking into the red light, as if summoned by it. Serenia Valior did not arrive with fanfare. She crossed the terrace the way snow crosses a battlefield, softly, as if to give the fallen a choice. She wore a gown the color of smoke after rain, and no jewels at all. The wind lifted a few loose strands of dark hair and threaded them with crimson. She did not look at the nobles who had practiced pity into an art. She looked only at the moon. 7 years of silence had not made her small. They had made her precise. Caliph felt the air tilt. The court blurred at the edges. And under the noise of pacts and protocol, something older than his crown rose to its feet inside him and howled in relief. "Mine." Not a word. A verdict. Serenia stopped at the terrace's edge. The blood moon burned a path across her cheekbones, and for one heartbeat he saw exactly what the goddess had tried to give him. A queen, not made to be held as ornament, but to be held as oath. His palms stung with the memory of a night he had not taken. "Your Majesty," said Liurain Theska, the moonseer, stepping forward to hide awe as duty, "the right demands—" "No." Caliph found his voice, rough as a blade that had forgotten oil. "The right has demanded for 7 years. Tonight it will listen." He walked. The crowd parted because power is gravity before it is law. Boots on stone, bell on air. His heart kept the old cadence of war, then stumbled into a rhythm it had not dared in 7 winters. Serenia did not turn until he stopped before her. When she did, it was like standing at the mouth of a cold spring. Her gaze held him as a mountain holds weather, not accusing, not pleading. It's simply true. "Your Majesty," she said, voice steady. "Serenia," he answered, and her name undid something tied in him since the night he had chosen victory over surrender and called it wisdom. He had thought words would come. Apologies hammered into shape. Confessions filed down to fit. They didn't. What arrived instead was silence, and in it the fact that he had been wrong about mercy. It does not negotiate. Behind him, fabric rustled. Neira Solon, the court's brightest poison, smiling with her eyes and tilting her goblet toward the spectacle. Torvin's hand brushed the hilt at his side in a gesture that said not here. The packs leaned forward as one. The moon climbed. 7 years, Caliph, Serenia said quietly. She used his name without permission and turned it into permission. "Do not let it become 8. He heard it, the narrowest doorway in the world unlocking. He stepped forward. The scent that hit him was rain on cold stone, ash after a hearth has done its work. The bonds surged, pain answered like gratitude. He did not mean to kneel. He had sworn he would not. Pride had built an empire on that refusal. But his body moved with the intelligence of wolves and grief, and the terrace understood before he did. The Alpha King was lowering himself to the stone. 1,000 years of myth looked for somewhere to sit. He stopped short. A breath above the ground. Not kneeling. Not standing. His entire reign hanging between both. Somewhere, a goblet cracked in a noble's hand. Somewhere else, a boy forgot to pretend he wasn't watching and dropped his mask. "Do it or don't," Serenia said, not unkind. "But stop rehearsing." The corner of his mouth remembered how to try for a smile. "You always hated half measures." "I learned from a master," she said, and the terrace flinched as if the stone itself had been struck. He let out a breath that steamed in the cold like confession. The bond climbed his throat, bright and merciless. 7 years of refusal stood behind him, like an army that had never won him back what he'd lost. He went to his knees. He ignored her for 7 years. And now he's on his knees. Before you find out what broke the Alpha King, hit subscribe, because every story here burns with love, betrayal, and redemption. And tell me in the comments, if the one who abandoned you begged for a second chance, would you take them back, or let them kneel forever? The sound of it was not loud. But those who had ever fallen to pray, or to beg, or to bleed, felt it in the bones they kept their oaths in. Caliph didn't bow his head, he bent it. Not submission, recognition. A murmur moved across the terrace like wind over grain. Naira's smile turned thin enough to cut. Torvin's jaw eased by the width of a mercy. Leorain's lips shaped a prayer older than her throat. Caliph lifted his face. For the first time in 7 years, he let the truth be seen while it still had the power to humiliate him. "I was wrong," he said. The court heard a king making a statement. Serenia heard a man laying his throat on something sacred. "I was a coward, masquerading as strength. I took the only holy thing I was given and left it standing in weather. I cannot unlive it." The blood moon brightened, as if it had wanted language for this and finally been offered some. He reached for her hand. He didn't touch. Men who have learned late try to learn gently. "Serenia Valeor," he said, voice breaking on the name the way ice breaks when the river insists on being a river. "If there is any world in which you can bear my touch, I beg you, let me claim the bond I refused." The court inhaled as one, the way crowds do when they wish to be seen. Serenia's eyes flicked to his hand, to the place it stopped short, to the mark under his collar where his heart had hammered itself stupid for 7 years. She looked beyond him to the packs that had made a sport of her absence, to the priestess who had warned him, to the woman whose ambition had fed his denial because it tasted like bravery. And then, finally, she looked at the moon. When she spoke, it was so soft that only those who had suffered learned to hear it. "You don't get to claim what you abandoned," she said. "You get to ask what you broke." He closed his eyes once, as if bracing for a blade that would cut clean if it was going to cut at all. When he opened them, there was no crown in them, only a man. "Then I ask." Silence. She let it sit. Let the entire kingdom feel what a woman who has been made to wait will make a nation wait for. The wind shifted. The bells counted. The moon reached the height from which things fall or are forgiven. "Stand," she said at last. He rose, not hiding the tremor in it. "Walk," she said, turning, not away, from the court, toward the moon court steps that led up to the terrace where oaths were taken before anyone learned how to break them beautifully. If you want the bond you refused, take the steps you refused with it. He followed, because kings who have learned late do not waste the lesson. They climbed. The court did not breathe. Torvin's hand fell away from his sword to the only weapon that mattered now. Hope. Naira's eyes narrowed, counting futures and finding fewer of them had her in them. Leoraine whispered to the moon to be kind, knowing the moon doesn't know that word. At the apex, under the blade of red, Serenia stopped. She turned. He halted a pace away. The air between them was the size of 7 years. "Your Grace," she said, and the title carried no praise and no insult, only the arithmetic of what he had and had not been as, "Why now?" "Because the goddess has a cruel sense of humor," he said, honesty dry enough to burn. "Because I woke to the scent of rain and remembered I have been thirsty for a long time, because I have spent 7 winters winning wars and losing the only battle that would have made them unnecessary. Because..." His voice failed, found footing. "Because I am sick." The word fell like a stone into a well and did not hit bottom. Her face did not move. Her eyes moved like the moon does, slowly enough to lie that it is moving at all. What sickness? The kind that makes a man feel his heart is older than his body. He didn't look away. The moonseer calls it bond sickness. 7 years of refusing the one thing that would have kept me whole. It has begun to eat through what wears the crown. For a breath, the blood moon dimmed, as if a cloud had found the nerve to pass between God and spectacle. "Why tell me?" she asked. "Because you asked me to stop rehearsing," he said. And there was a smile in it, small and stupidly brave. "Because the one thing I refuse to give you is the one thing that could save my life. And I have finally grown weary of trying to live without it. Because I don't want to ask you as a king, and I don't know how to ask you as a man except like this. Help me." He didn't kneel this time. He bowed his head, and the gesture was more dangerous than kneeling. It said, "I will not make a spectacle of my surrender. I will make a habit of it." Serenia's throat worked. Her hand lifted a fraction, as if to offer him the distance back. Then she closed it, because love given in pity rots into something both will have to bury. "The bond is not a remedy," she said. "It's a mirror. If you place your hands on it now, it will show you what you did to it." "Then let it," he said. She studied him a long time then, the way healers study fever to decide whether it is breaking or breaking the body. In the red light, he looked younger, or maybe he looked exactly his age at last, stripped of the weight he had been using to pretend he was made of iron and not animal. "The court is watching," she said. "Let it," he said again. She nodded once. "Tomorrow," she said. And the words sounded like a cliff that had agreed to let someone climb it. At moonfall in the moon court's inner circle. "You will come without crown or guard. You will place your hands on the stone. You will not speak. If the bond wants you, it will take you. If it does not, you will walk away, and you will not look back." He opened his mouth. She raised a hand. He closed it. And Caliph, she added softer, for him and not for the kingdom. If it takes you, it will hurt. I deserve worse, he said. That's not why it will hurt, she said. The bells finished counting. The court remembered how to murmur. The moon held itself as high as it would go and thought about falling. Caliph stepped back. He did not reach for her. Men who have learned late know how to wait. He turned to descend the steps. The terrace parted again. He passed Nira's cool gaze. It slid off him like a knife off bone. He passed Torvin, whose mouth moved around a word it had not practiced in years. Finally, he passed Leorayan, who searched his face as one searches maps for roads one is afraid to take. At the base, the wind shifted. The blood moon wavered. Far below the citadel, something under the stone answered, with a sound like a heartbeat inside winter. Caliph paused. The mark over his heart struck like iron on an anvil. He put a hand to it and felt, not pain, anticipation. He looked up to where Serenia stood and found her already looking down. Neither smiled. Both knew what a smile would cheapen. They waited for tomorrow to arrive like a verdict. At the stroke of moonfall, a crack races through the mooncourt's inner stone, shaped like a crescent breaking. From the fracturing seam, a pale breath rises and whispers his name. Night laid its red veil over Valespire and listened. Caliph did not sleep. Kings rarely do on the eve of judgment. He stood in the war room alone, maps curled like dead leaves beneath his palms, candles burning down into the shape of hours. Somewhere above, the moon court waited with its patient stone. Somewhere beyond, the blood moon inched toward the exact moment it turns from sign to sentence. The first spasm hit without warning. It was not pain as steel understands it. It was the body remembering a language it had been forbidden to speak. The bond trying his heart like a key in a lock rusted by refusal. Caliph clutched the edge of the table. A scatter of carved wolf tokens rolled like bones and fell silent on the map. Breathe, he told himself. And the command found no soldiers to obey it. Another seizure surged. A hard, luminous ache that dragged his pulse off its march. He tasted copper. The mark over his heart flared so bright, he half expected to look down and see light shining through ribs like a lantern in winter. The door clicked. Torvin Kaelwyn was inside before courtesy could announce him, eyes taking in the details without moving his head. How long? Torvin asked. Since the terrace, Caliph said. His voice came raw, as if he had been shouting into the inside of his chest. Since I said her name, and meant it. Torvin closed the distance, steady as an oath kept for its own sake. He pressed 2 fingers to the king's wrist, then to the inside of his elbow, then, after a breath of hesitation, to the mark over Caliph's heart. The touch made the ache sharpen into clarity. Bond sickness, Torvin said softly. It's found you again. It never stopped looking, Caliph said. You should be in the healer's court. I should be many things, he said, managing a ragged sigh. Tonight, I will settle for being honest. A third wave rolled through him, dragged him half to his knees. Torvin caught him, took the weight as a matter of habit. The lamp flame swayed and steadied. Lyorayan warned you, Torvin said. 7 years ago. I heard her, Calith said, breath thin. Hearing isn't the same as listening. Torvin studied him a long moment. Do you want me there tomorrow? I want you anywhere faith is thin, Calith said. And Torvin? Yes, my king. If the moon court takes me, you'll keep the city gentle with her. Torvin's jaw set around the kind of promise men don't make unless they've already decided to die for it. If it takes you, he said, it will be because you finally stopped running. Gentleness will not be the hard part. Calith's laugh broke and turned into a cough. When it eased, he straightened, dragging air back into discipline. Go, he said. Sleep a few hours and pretend it will help. Torvin didn't move. You're shaking. I'm thinking, Calith said. That's new, Torvin said, deadpan. An escape before the king could throw anything that would accidentally be a smile. Silence returned the room to itself. The moon climbed an inch. Calith laid both hands over the mark, closed his eyes, and, because there was nothing left dignity could save, spoke to the woman he had taught himself not to speak to. Serenia, if your silence has edges sharp enough to cut this from me, keep them. If it has a door, open it. Once. The bond answered, not with words, but with the smallest correction of his pulse, like a song tightening a fraction toward tune. He looked up as if he might catch the sound leaving the air. In the Queen's Twer, Serenia Valeo lit no lamps. Fire is a kind of witness, and tonight she wanted none. She sat on the floor by the open arches where Winter thought about entering and went back to considering its options. The city's breath moved below. Sleeping animals, alert guards, a few lovers who would not remember what the moon looked like when they woke. She could feel him. Not as women are taught to mean it, not the palace gossips prickle or the fantasy booksellers sell when they dress need as destiny. She felt his pulse on her pulse, faint as the echo of a bell through stone. When his heart stumbled, hers corrected to find it. When his chest fought for air, a ribbon of cold tightened just below her sternum, as if the night itself had put a hand there and asked her to wait. You hear it too, Leorain Theska said from the doorway. The priestess did not ask permission to enter. Old women who talk to gods learn early not to knock. I hear what I choose, Serenia said, not turning. Leorain smiled. It sounded like paper turning a page. Choice is a word the moon doesn't know, but I admire the effort. She crossed the room and sat, slow bones folding with grace earned by pain. He'll come tomorrow? He said he would, Serenia said. And you believe him? Serenia watched the moon thread itself through a sliver of cloud that had forgotten its business. Belief is another word the moon doesn't know. Then why agree? Leorain asked. Because I'm tired of carrying a bond a man refuses to hold with me, Serenia said. Because I can hear him dying, and I do not want to be the last sound he hears. Leorain nodded as if a puzzle had turned to reveal its simple side. Good. Keep the spine of that sentence. She tilted her head. There's more. Serenia let the silence present its invoice. The bond has changed. How? It's speaking, Serenia said, and the saying of it made the room shiver. Not with words any ear was made for. It calls me vessel. It calls him oath. Leorain looked at her in the friendly way executioners used to, each professional admiring the other's steadiness, Then the old prophecy has uncoiled, she said. Vessel and oath in one generation. The moon means to keep itself entertained. Serenia put a hand flat to her own ribs. Beneath skin, beneath bone, something answered. Slow, certain, unembarrassed by being named. What does it want? Balance, Leoraine said, which is what powerful things call mercy when they don't have to pay for it. A breath of cold wandered through the arch and set a few strands of Serenia's hair traveling. If the bond takes him, she said, it will hurt. That is not a question, Leoraine said. No, Serenia agreed. It's practice. The priestess's eyes softened. Do you still love him? Serenia considered the moon, which looked back the way hunters look at deer. With interest, not affection. I love the quiet I earned without him, she said. I love the person I had to build where he left a silence. I love the city enough to let it think me saint or traitor if that's what keeping it whole costs. The smallest smile found her mouth and did not stay. As for him, ask me after tomorrow. And if the answer is yes? Leoraine asked. Then I will try to love him like a vow, not an excuse, Serenia said. Leoraine bowed her head the way priests bow to whichever god is not listening hardest. I'll prepare the circle, she said, and left as if leaving were a sacrament. Alone again, Serenia leaned into the arch and closed her eyes. The bond's echo moved under her palm. When it stuttered, she whispered, not prayer, not plea, just his name. The way you might say home when you mean forgive me for leaving you empty this long. The echo steadied. The hour before dawn has teeth. It bit Calith while he watched the city not sleep. He made it to his private chamber on the discipline and nothing else. The walls there remembered him better than his people did. They did not require performance. He shrugged off the cloak and the crown that wasn't a crown so much as a language, and caught himself in the mirror. His reflection came a half-breath late. Cowardice looks well on you, he said to the man who had worn it so sharply it passed for courage. Pride too. They fit like a uniform. The mirror did not answer. He let his forehead touch the cold glass and let the cold tell him a few things about himself he could not. The seizure took him wholly, a tide with no shore to offer. His vision went black around the bold red of the moon's after-image. He dropped hard to one knee and then both. His hands found nothing to hold. He heard a sound that could have been a wolf or a man learning how to ask for help too late. Then another sound found him. Not in the room, in the pulse. Two notes aligning not because they have learned how, but because they cannot imagine being two anymore. The ache slipped, caught, clicked. Pain stayed, but meaning rose through it, like air through water. Vessel, the not voice said somewhere not outside his head. Oath. Which? He rasped. Which am I? You are what kneels, the not voice said, not unkind. He laughed once, ruined sound, and the bond steadied the tiniest edge more, as if laughter made good ballast. Before dawn, Nira Solon walked the servants' corridor with a shawl and a smile. She had learned long ago that poison in a goblet takes you only as far as the throat you've paid for. Poison in a rumor will finish the work. A kitchen maid froze mid-step. Naira brushed a lock of hair from the girl's cheek. Kindness as a blade's hilt. You'll hear it first, Naira said in a voice designed to sound like friendship. Screams from the moon court. The bond taking what it's owed. The girl went pale. The king, Nera's smile did not move. A bond doesn't choose kings, she said. It chooses what bleeds. She drifted on, the shawl trailing like smoke, her eyes bright with tomorrow's entertainment. Caliph did sleep for an hour in the end, the kind of sleep that has more in common with fainting than with rest. He woke to the sound of bells testing themselves. The seizure had retreated to a tremor, the way storms remember a field after they've gone, and the grass stands up trying to pretend it was never flat. Water, clothing, restraint. He made a soldier's mourning of it, and when he looked like a king again, he believed it enough to walk. Torvin waited at the base of the Mooncourt stair. Leorian waited at the top, already within the circle. Robes marked with the signs old as the first arrangement between sky and beast. Between them, the steps rose, clean stone, red light, the space where men run out of options and discover subjects they never meant to take up. Serenia stood inside the inner ring. She had braided her hair back, as if preparing for work. She had bared her forearms to the cold, as if to say, let's not lie about what's being asked. A line of silver, no jewel, just light, behaving as if it owed her something, threaded the inside of her wrist like a promise written where a blade might look for room. When she saw Caliph, nothing in her face moved except her eyes, which made a place for him to stand. He crossed the circle. The stone underfoot felt older than accuracy. He stripped the ring from his finger and laid it beside the outer line, because she had said without crown or guard, and a man who has only just learned obedience begins by wanting to overperform at it. He unbuckled the sword and set it down. The weight left his hip and went obediently to the floor. Leorain's voice lifted, simple as counting. Hands on the stone? No words. When the bond takes you, hold. When it ignores you, do not beg. Caliph set his palms to the inner circle. The stone was cold the way truth is cold. He did not speak. The first bloom of heat rose through his arms into the center of his chest and found the mark waiting like a door left ajar. The ache returned at once, not as seizure this time, but as hunger. His breath shortened. Somewhere, a part of him that had gotten him through every fight without getting him home tried to rise and take supervision. He let it sit down. Across from him, Serenia mirrored his stance. When her palms met the stone, the red of the moon thinned to a deeper color. Old blood at the edge of memory. Her lips parted on a breath that tasted like rain after iron. It began. There are moments that do not care for language. The circle filled with one. Heat, light, the disciplined agony of something aligning that has been forced out of line too long. The intimate indecency of being known by a mechanism older than flesh. Caliph held. His fingers dug into stone that did not give. The mark tore bright. His heart kicked once, twice, then fell into a pattern he did not remember ever consenting to, but was grateful for anyway. Serenia's eyes closed. Her throat arched, as if remembering water. The line of silver inside her wrist brightened until it was a thin blade of moon laid under skin. Tears stung her eyes and did not fall. Her jaw set around a prayer she had taught herself not to say. Vessel, the not voice said, closer now. Oath, choose. The not voice whispered to neither and both. Caliph's hands slipped. Serenia's fingers came off the stone a fraction, then found it again. A sound rose from him that had no business at court. A sound rose from her that belonged where animals live when they are not trying to be polite for anyone's comfort. Hold, Leoraine said softly, and the word was a bridge she put between them, so neither would fall alone. Calith felt something give. Not the stone, the story. The one he had told about himself to himself. It split along a long-ignored seam. In the break, an older version of him put his mouth to the floor of his own life and drank. Serenia felt it too. The line where a woman ceases to be the place a man goes to get forgiven and becomes the place she stands to forgive herself for waiting. She held. Not for him, for the part of her that would not look at herself again if she let go. The bond took them. They did not pass out. They passed through. Light rose, not to blind, but to reveal what had been insisting in the dark. He saw the 7 rooms inside his heart, where he had stored reasons. She saw the 7 rooms inside hers where she had learned the names of silence. The rooms opened. They looked in each other's. Under their hands, the stone groaned. A hairline crack laced the circle's edge, crescent-shaped. Calith sucked in a breath through his teeth. Blood, or something wiser than blood, beaded along his lower lip. Serenia's knees hit stone and stayed because Will is clever at making kneeling look like choice. The heat peaked. The ache turned a corner and became meaning. When it broke, it did so cleanly. A deep, bone-level click sounded. Inside him, inside her, inside the circle, the way doors do when the house they belong to remembers what it was designed for. Silence fell so hard even the bells refused to violate it. Calith waited for release and found instead relief. The tremor in his hands stilled. The mark over his heart stopped throwing knives and lay down like a tired animal folding its legs under itself. He lifted his head. He did not look at Leoraine. He looked at the only altar left in the room that mattered. Serenia opened her eyes. The first thing he saw in them was anger that he recognized as love would look if it had an older sister who refused to let it go out dressed like that. The second thing he saw was grief without melodrama. The third thing he saw was the moon, but kinder. Now, she said, voice very even, as if the only thing she wished to carry from this circle into history was control. We talk. He nodded. We do. Leoraine let out a breath that the priesthood would count as blasphemy and the gods would file under amusement. Enough for today, she said. The bond has you. You have it. Go be unwise somewhere private. Tomorrow, Serenia said. Ignoring the priestess gently, we decide what the bond gets to keep, and what it doesn't. Calith swallowed. What do you mean? I mean, she said, you will not use it to claim what apology must earn. He bowed his head. No spectacle, just habit forming. Yes. He stood. He offered a hand. She stared at it for the length of a single bell stroke and took it anyway. Because forgiveness begins in the body before it agrees to sign paperwork in the mind. They stepped out of the circle together. Behind them, the crescent crack widened by the width of a breath and exhaled a thin, pale mist that smelled like rain finding stone it had missed. As they leave the moon court, Serenia staggers, just once, and catches the rail. For a heartbeat, Calith's pulse vanishes from the bond. In the echoing quiet, a word not spoken with any mouth writes itself behind her ribs. Vessel. Then a vision hits, Calith dying in her arms, while light devours the throne. Morning came down like a witness who'd sworn not to speak, and then did. Word moved faster than bells. Servants carried it in folded linens and steaming kettles. Guards traded it under their breath on the change of watch. By the time the sun put a pale hand on Valespire, the rumour had learned how to walk. The bond took the king. The queen stood in the moon and didn't break. The inner circle cracked like a crescent and exhaled. No one agreed on the last detail. Everyone remembered it. Caliph entered the throne hall without the crown, and the room, trained to rise for metal, hesitated before it remembered who it had been built to serve. He crossed the black stone runner that split the chamber and stopped a pace before the dais. The throne waited. It was a relic carved from a fallen moonstone, veined with silver seized from a night older than language. For 7 years it had fitted his body and rejected his pulse. He had sat like a soldier, occupying taken ground. Today, as he reached it, cold moved through him that did not belong to the stone. Torvin stood at his right. Leorain at his left, austere as an hourglass deciding sand. The nobles clustered in their tiers, feathered and jewelled, beautiful as arguments. "High Court," Caliph said, voice steady. "Attend." They did. Power is obedience with its mask off. "The bond is present," he said. The sound climbed the pillars and found the vaulted dark. "What I refused is here. What I broke answers." A soft rippling murmur. Shock trying to be etiquette. Nira Solan leaned against a pillar in a gown the colour of blood that had decided to be fashionable. She watched him over the rim of a goblet she had brought to every rehearsal of collapse. "What does present mean?" asked Lord Varys, who had made a career of using questions as ladders. "Is the Queen restored to—" "The Queen never left," Caliph said. "You only learned how to talk around her." Leorain's mouth hid a smile the priesthood would have fined her for. Nyra lowered the goblet, the line of her lips a precise curve. "And what will be done with the crack?" Every eye slid to Leorain. The priestess did not look away from the king. "Stone Record's covenant," she said. "When truths align, it moves. The crescent at the inner circle signals a bond reawakening. It is not a flaw, it is a signature." "So the floor isn't breaking," Nira said lightly, just remembering how comforting. Caliph stepped onto the dais and did not sit. The cold in the seat had grown opinionated, a hollow where heat should live. He felt it like the outline left by a body you miss in a bed you still share. "The court will suspend petitions for 3 days, he said. "No marriages contracted, no treaties signed, no judgments sealed. Vows made under a changing sky breed cowardice and litigation." "You insult the law," Lord Varys said, feigning offence with professional grace. "I reprimand impatience," Caliph said. "If it injures you, heal." Torvin's hand relaxed from the pommel of the sword he had surrendered to a guard at the door. His eyes drifted to Nyra, then away, the way men look at fires to determine whether they are warmth or warning. Leorain raised her staff. The carven moon at its head drank light it did not need. "There will be rights," she said. "If the city is to keep its shape, it must learn the new weight of truth. The people should be told, Dol." The nobles rustled like predator grass. "Not yet," Caliph said. "And you counsel secrecy?" Varys asked. "After present?" "I counsel sequence," Caliph said. "We will tell them, and we will choose the words. If you feed a city raw rumor, it teaches its children to starve on it. He turned his head just enough to find Leorayan's profile. At moonrise, we repeat the circle. In private. If the bond holds a second time, we take it public. If it fails, it won't, Leorayan said. He nodded to the room. Adjourn. The nobles did what nobles do. They obeyed and left disobeying to their later conversations. Their whispers followed them like perfume. Nera lingered long enough for her absence to feel chosen, then moved toward the Queen's tower without turning her head toward it. Calith watched her go the way one watches a viper leave the sun. "Zard to say it," he murmured to Torvin as the last of the lords filed out. Torvin didn't dress the sentence. "Solon is a leak with jewelry." "Let her pour," Calith said. "I want to see who drinks." In the Queen's solar, Serenia stood at the lattice and watched winter climb the garden wall like a beast remembering how to hunt. Her maid, Aneth, layered furs over the settle without asking. Kindness, when practiced, becomes indistinguishable from ritual. "You shouldn't be alone," Aneth said softly. "That's what queens are best at," Serenia answered, and the line earned a small smile that did not last. "Word is everywhere," Aneth said, eyes shining with excitement and dread in equal parts. "They're saying you stood in the moon and didn't cry." "I did both," Serenia said. "One in my knees, one behind my eyes." Aneth glanced toward the door, as if looking could keep wolves from using it. "They're saying the inner stone cracked." "It did," Serenia said. "What does it mean?" The girl asked. "That the court floor now knows something it cannot forget," Serenia said gently. "That is more than can be said for most of the court." The door whispered open. Calith crossed the threshold, then stopped, not at the sight of her, which had been burning on the back of his eyes all morning, but at the sound of his own pulse answering hers like a dog finally let out of a room. He dismissed Aneth with a nod. She fled like someone leaving lovers to speak after funerals. "You should not come here unannounced," Serenia said without turning. "It suggests a habit." "It suggests need," Calith said, and then, because he had sworn to stop rehearsing, "it suggests fear." She turned. The morning made a silver outline of his shoulder, where the window cut him into a man, and something that had tried not to be one for too long. "Of what?" "Not the court," he said, "not the bond. Of finding I have learned how to kneel, and not how to stand up correctly after." Her mouth softened despite itself. "You did not make a spectacle of it today. That is a beginning." He came closer and stopped at the edge of the carpet, as if it were a line drawn for war games. "Are you well?" "The circle left bruises," she said. "Different kind." "I feel them," he said, before he could stop himself. The bond tugged agreement, a shared ache in the ribs, where breath went to sharpen itself. "Do not practice tenderness on me," Serenia said, voice even. "Practice truth." He bowed his head once. "Then truth. If we take the bond to the city, they will try you to make it a parade. I will not have your sanctity turned into pageantry." "My sanctity?" she said. "Not our bond?" He caught the trap, honored it by not evading. "Both. But the city sees what it can put on a banner to it." "And you think to control what it sees," she said. Faint amusement in the blade. "I think to build the first thing we have not broken, before we hand it to people who cheer for kindling, he said, allowing the edge in his voice its right. She studied him as if deciding whether to write this version down somewhere important. At moonrise, we return to the circle, she said. After, we decide whether to walk the streets together or remain rumor. He reached as if to take her hand, stopped, and closed his fist on air. His restraint did more for her than his touch would have. A muscle in her jaw released. There is something else, he said. There always is, she said. I am not the only one the bond is changing, he said carefully. Last night, during the seizure, I heard a not voice. Leorayan would call it the moon's handwriting. It named me Oath. It named you Vessel, she said. The word struck the air and stuck to the window like frost. They regarded each other in the kind of silence that can light fires if handled without respect. What does it want? He asked. To be fed, she said. Balance, Kieran would have called it. Justice, if priests stopped threatening people with the word. And what do you want? He asked. Serenia stepped closer, and the bond brightened quietly between them, as if sound had moved underwater. A life that does not require me to become divine to be survived, she said. A love that does not arrive as atonement. He nodded once, as if it were a decree he intended to enforce against himself. A rap at the door broke the air. Torvin entered without waiting for permission he had earned 100 times. He bowed to Serenia. He addressed his king with eyes that had memorized 5 wars and 8 famines and still preferred honesty to flattery. We have a problem, he said. Which kind? Caleb asked. The kind with paper, Torvin said, and held out a broadside torn from a post in the lower market. The ink had bled in the cold, as if the words themselves didn't like the weather they'd been printed in. Caleb read. Serenia watched the blood leave his face in stages, a tide the sea could be sued for. He passed the sheet to her. By decree of the Moon Tribunal, the inner circle has split. A queen of silence will open it wider. At moonrise, the king will be claimed and unmade. Witnesses named below. A list followed. A scullion, no one noticed. A junior scribe ambitious enough to be bribable. A god who liked dice more than discipline. Nira? Torvin said. No, Serenia said softly, eyes traveling the names. She would not be this crude. She prefers knives you don't see until you are telling a story about them. Then who? Caleb asked. Torvin lifted another sheet. There's more. It was a sketch. Charcoal quick and sure. The inner circle, its hairline crescent exact. And 2 small figures mirrored across it. One kneeling, one not. The caption, what mercy refused, judgment will take. Someone was inside, Caleb said, or close enough to hear a bone break. Someone sold the sound? Serenia said, and someone bought it to sell to fear. Leorayan's voice came from the corridor. She did not enter, as if the paper had made the room unholy. The Moon Tribunal is not mine, she said. They are lay zealots with liturgical fonts, but they can rouse a crowd. How soon? Caleb asked. They're gathering by the sundown, Torvin said. They'll march for the moon court at moonfall. And the god? Caleb asked. Loyal to your person, Torvin said. Less to your myth. They will hold a crowd. They will not hold a faith. Caleb folded the broadside once, then again, as if smaller would mean less true. He set it on the table and put 2 fingers on it, the way men put 2 fingers on a pulse when they need a number to distract from a feeling. We take the circle again, he said. We hold. Then we step onto the outer steps together and speak before the tribunal writes the word unmaking on me in letters the city learns to read. Serenia watched him, weighing audacity against wisdom and finding both numbers insufficient. You wish to meet a stampede with a sentence, she said. I wish to meet a rumor with a throat, he said. Torvin's gaze flicked from one to the other, counting risks. Then we require 2 things. A cordon that looks like welcome, and a story that tastes like courage. I will write both, Serenia said. But we cannot go out there with your heart behaving like a novice at its first battle. She stepped closer. Her hand hovered a breath above his chest. Heat blooming quietly beneath her palm without touching. The bond thrummed. For a heartbeat, the world assembled itself around where her fingers would be if restraint weren't a sacrament. Tonight, she said, you will breathe when I breathe. If you falter, I will drag your lungs by mine. If you run, I will let you and still hold the end of the rope. If you try to die on me, I won't, he said, and believed himself this times. Torvin cleared his throat the way men do when they have to interrupt a door being fitted into place. One more matter, he said, and handed over a small token, a disc of hammered pewter stamped with a crescent. We found this in the scribe's quarters, back of his trunk. You will not like what guild it belongs to. Calith turned it in his fingers. The sigil was an old one, the crescent broken by a thorn. Leorain hissed softly. The thorned crescent, she said. They preach a moon that bites. They call bonds heresy, unless supervised by their altar. Serenia's mouth cooled. Then they will not permit a queen who learned silence without them. Calith closed his fist around the token. Metal bit, blood beaded, bright as punctuation. Let them come, he said. We will speak before their sermon does. They moved through the day like pieces set cleanly on a board, where the game had outgrown rules. Torvin arranged the cordon, not spears in a line, but rows of lanterns and guards with helmets off, so faces could be read as human before they were read as iron. Lyraean prepared the mooncourt steps with the chalk and ash, not to bind. Binding had brought them here, but to bless any place their feet might need to learn to stand. Naira visited the queen with a basket of winter plums and a smile designed to install itself under the skin. The city is worried for you, she murmured. It whispers that the king means to make a meal of your miracle. Serenia accepted a plum, placed it back in the basket, and closed Naira's hand around the handle. Tell the city I'm not easily eaten, she said. Naira's eyes shone with a pleasure that always meant fire to someone else's house. I will, she said, and drifted out like perfume that had forgotten its owner. Dusk bled into the stone. The first knots of the tribunal's crowd arrived before the bells remembered their work. Men in rough cloaks, women with candles, boys who believed shouting is identical to courage. They carried copies of the sketch and the broadside. They had already decided what would be said. They had come to hear their decision in a deeper voice. The guard line, ripple of torchlight and open faces, held. Calith and Serenia stood together behind the mooncourt doors. The bond beat, a quiet drum that had learned 2 hearts and was trying them in duet. Ready? he asked. No, she said. Yes, same, he said. And something like laughter, starved and surprise, arrived in both their mouths at once. Liorayan lifted the bar. The doors opened. Light from the torches reached for them and stopped politely at the threshold. The crowd hushed the way crowds do when they want to hear the thing sing that will make them certain they were right all along. Caleb took one step forward. Serenia matched it, shoulder a breath from his. The knight leaned in. A voice from the crowd, thin, fervent, rose above the rest. A boy's, breaking in the middle of faith. Unmake the false bond, let the moon choose. Thorn the crescent. The cry caught, multiplied, learned harmony. Thorn the crescent, thorn the crescent. Serenia glanced sideways. They mean me. They mean us, he said. Then they will hear us, she said, and lifted her chin to the height where truth stands to protect the throat that speaks it. Caelith opened his mouth. Something struck the steps between them. A small object, spinning end over end. It hit, rolled, and stopped at Serenia's foot. A pewter token, crescent broken by a thorn. Her breath disappeared. The crowd roared. Smelling blood, it had thrown itself. Caelith bent to pick up the token. As he did, a whisper, neither human nor wind, lifted from the stone, thin as a secret the earth regretted keeping. Vessel. Serenia swayed. For a single knife-bright heartbeat, the bond went silent. Caelith's pulse vanished from her chest. She caught the rail. The crowd surged. A bell tolls, not from the tower, but from under the moon court. The crescent crack crawls up the steps like frost, splitting toward the doors. In the hush that follows, a voice amplified by no mouth thunders through the stone. At moonfall, the oath will be fed. The crowd's cry still lived in the air long after the torches died. Caelith stood at the base of the moon court steps, shoulders squared, eyes on the horizon where dawn refused to come. The bloodied pewter token still rested in his palm, its thorned crescent pressing deep enough to draw a small, slow bead of red. It gleamed under moonlight, like a signature written in pain. "Feed the oath," the voice had thundered, and the mark over his heart, once dormant, had flared as though obeying. He turned to Serenia. She stood on the steps above him, her face pale, her breath shallow, the word, vessel, still echoing somewhere beneath her ribs, like a bell struck too hard to stop ringing. "Inside," he said. "Now." She didn't argue. Queens who have lived too long with prophecy learn not to waste their defiance on echoes. The chamber beneath the moon court had no doors when built, only prayers. Over centuries, kings had added locks for safety, then for secrecy. Tonight, those locks lay open. Liorayan waited beside the moonstone altar, staff dimmed to a small white ember. "It's begun," she whispered as they entered. The thorned crescent calls the moon's hunger its gospel. They'll feed it with anything that bleeds royal. Caelith touched his chest where the mark throbbed. "They said the oath will be fed." "What if they mean you?" Liorayan said gently. "They always did." Serenia's head lifted sharply. "No." The priestess turned to her. "If the moon devours him, the kingdom balances, the bloodline resets." "You would let the moon murder him?" "I would let the goddess claim what arrogance once denied her." Liorayan said, "There's a difference." Caliph stepped between them. His voice was calm, steady, the tone of a king who had buried fear beneath command. We're not giving her what she wants. We're giving her what she doesn't expect. Serenia frowned. Meaning? He turned, took a dagger from the altar. The blade shimmered with moonlight, silver drawn from the first fallen star. The bond took us both. If it demands life, it will get both, but not as sacrifice. He drew the dagger across his palm. Blood welled, bright as molten glass. Caliph. He ignored her. If my blood is oath and yours is vessel, then we bind them together. We seal it, not in death, but in balance. Serenia's voice trembled. You don't know if it will work. He looked up at her. The firelight turned the scar along his jaw to gold. No, but I know what will happen if I do nothing. He offered her the dagger, cut. She hesitated, then took it. The metal sang between them, low and cold. Her fingers brushed his. A spark leapt across the bond, traveling from wound to wound, soul to soul. Together, he said. She pressed the blade to her palm and drew a shallow line. Blood rose. Her hand met his, palm to palm, red to red. The world tilted. Light shot from their joined hands like a ribbon of a living flame. The bond flared. No longer an ache, but a command. The crescent crack in the court above them answered with a groan that shook dust from the ceiling. Leoraine stumbled back, whispering ancient words. The air turned heavy, sweet, electric. The smell of blood, moonlight, and judgment. Their blood began to merge, not falling, not spilling, but flowing upward, drawn by something unseen. It coiled between them in a spiral of silver fire, forming the shape of a sigil, half moon, half crown. Serenia gasped, Caliph! He looked at her, eyes burning brighter than the mark on his chest. Don't stop. The fire swallowed the dagger, melted it to ash, and then wrapped around their wrists like chains forged of light. A voice, old, female, resonant as thunder, filled the room. Oath and vessel! Balance restored in blood freely given. Yet every balance leans. One will fall to lift the other. The light dimmed. The bond pulsed once more. Softer this time. A heartbeat shared between two lives. Leoraine fell to her knees. The bargain is struck, she whispered. The moon accepts it. But she has named a cost. Serenia's eyes filled with tears that didn't fall. Which of us will fall? The priestess didn't answer. Caliph turned to Serenia, the chains of light still glowing faintly between their wrists. If there's a price, he said, then I pay it. This began with my refusal. It will end with my choice. But the moonlight in Serenia's eyes was no longer pleading. It was resolve. You cannot command fate, Caliph. I can try, he said. You can't win, she said. He smiled faintly. Then I'll lose beautifully. Above them, the tribunal chanted in the square. The sound came faintly through the cracks in the court, thousands of voices rising and falling in rhythm. Thorn the crescent. Feed the oath. Caliph closed his eyes, the sound striking him like stones. Serenia felt it too, the way the bond tugged between them, each syllable of hate a thread pulling tight. Let them come, she said. They will, he answered. Then let's make them see what they worship. The light around their wrists flared once more. Not violent this time, resigned, almost tender. It sank into their skin, leaving a faint crescent scar. Identical on each hand, the mark of a bargain. Leorion rose slowly. The moon will feed at moonfall. Until then, you are both hers. Calith looked at Serenia, and for the first time in years, his voice softened into something that wasn't command but prayer. Then we make the last hours ours. She didn't stop him when he reached for her hand this time. As dawn finally crests, a streak of sunlight cuts across the altar. Pure gold meeting silver flame. The bond between them flickers once, and in that shimmer, Calith sees his reflection collapse to ash, while Serenia's eyes glow brighter than the sun. One will fall to lift the other. The moon court lay quiet again, but the quiet was not peace. It was aftermath trying to invent a language. Outside, dawn broke wrong. Light too pale, air too heavy. Birds missing their cue. Serenia woke first. She sat upright in the royal chamber, pulse running 2 songs at once. Her own heartbeat and the echo of Calith's through the bond. He slept still, sprawled in the half-light, breath uneven but alive. The silver mark across his chest had dimmed from flame to ember. She pressed a hand to her ribs. Beneath skin and bone, something pulsed in return. Slow, ancient, deliberate. The bond lives, she thought. And so does something else. Leorion entered without sound. The priestess looked older, as if the night itself had aged her. The moon is fed, she said. The goddess is quiet. But the quiet means listening. Serenia rose, pulling the robe around her shoulders. Tell me what you saw. I saw you bleed light, Leorion said softly. I saw him give it shape. And I saw the flame between you divide. Divide? The priestess nodded, half bound to the oath, half to the vessel. The moon accepted both, but left its seed with only one. Serenia's pulse stumbled. Whose? Leorion's eyes held pity too heavy to lift. Yours. Serenia stepped back, gripping the edge of the table. What does that mean? It means the bond has made you the moon's womb. Leorion whispered. The goddess planted the heart seed, the power that keeps her balance. It will grow until it crowns the sky again. When it blooms, the one who carries it will burn to light the next age. Serenia shook her head. No, that's not a blessing. That's execution dressed in prophecy. Balance, the priestess murmured. She wanted to scream, but silence came easier. It always had. Calith woke to the echo of that silence. His hand found the empty side of the bed and the cold imprint of her absence. For a moment, he simply breathed, half relief, half dread. The bond pulsed steady now, but it no longer felt like a tether. It felt like a compass pointing to something he could not yet name. He found her in the moon garden, barefoot in the frost. You should be resting, he said. I am, she answered, not turning. The air is kinder than the bed. He joined her, standing close enough that their shadows touched. The frost melted slightly beneath their feet, steam rising between them like a ghost, too curious to leave. The bargain holds, he said quietly. For now, she replied. But we have traded the curse for a countdown. He frowned. What do you mean? The heart seed, she whispered. It's inside me. He turned sharply. What? She met his gaze. The goddess planted it through the bond. It's what we fed. It will grow until it consumes me, or births something neither of us can stop. Caliph stared at her, his pulse roaring in his ears. Then we take it out. Her laugh was soft and bitter. You can't carve divinity from flesh, Caliph. Then we find another way, he said, voice sharp with desperation. I will not let the moon take you. She stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. You already did, 7 years ago. Now she's only collecting her debt. He caught her hand, pressing it to his heart. Then let her take me instead. Serenia's eyes softened, not with forgiveness, but understanding. That's not how balance works. Then I'll break balance, he growled. She smiled faintly, and that's why she chose you. To kneel, not to defy. That night, the priestess summoned them to the mirror hall, a dome of polished glass designed to reflect the moon from every angle. The cracked crescent from the inner circle had spread up the walls like veins of silver lightning. This is where truth shows its face, Leorayan said. Whatever you see, don't touch it. They stood together before the largest mirror. Their reflections swayed faintly, like the glass itself breathed. Then the images shifted. In the mirror, Caliph saw himself crowned, but his eyes hollow, thrown empty beside him. Serenia saw herself wreathed in light, eyes glowing, Caliph's crown in her hands, melting. The glass whispered, every vow eats the one who swore it. Caliph reached out despite the warning. The reflection flared. His hand met glass, and his veins filled with light. Serenia shouted his name, grabbing his arm, and the same fire leapt into her. They fell to their knees together, light surging between them, the mirror's surface rippling like water around a drowning man. Visions struck them both. The throne room ablaze, the moon weeping blood. Serenia standing alone amid ashes, while Caliph's voice faded into the wind. The mirror shattered. Leorayan caught them both before they hit the floor. You've seen what the goddess demands. Serenia gasped for air. She demands too much. She always does, the priestess said. Later, alone in the queen's chamber, Caliph found her sitting by the window again, pale light brushing her face. He knelt beside her, not as a king this time, but as a man terrified of a world without her in it. You're not dying for this, he said. I'm not dying, she whispered. I'm becoming something else. He gripped her hands. Then let me become it with you. She met his eyes, a single tear catching the moonlight before it fell. That's the one thing you can't ask. The bond pulsed between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Outside, thunder rolled through no storm had come. The moon was rising again, too soon, too bright. Tomorrow, Serenia said quietly, the heartseed will bloom. Caliph's breath caught, and you'll burn. Or save us, she said. Sometimes they're the same thing. A tremor shuddered through Valespire as the moon turned blood red once more. The mark on Serenia's palm flared like a living flame, and beneath her skin, a faint heartbeat answered. But it wasn't hers. The heartseed had begun to wake. The first tremor hit at sunset. A low hum rippled through the air. Not quite sound, not quite silence. Every candle in the palace flickered the same way, pulled by a single unseen breath. Serenia stood on the balcony, wind clawing her hair across her face. Her skin glowed faintly under the crimson moon, veins laced with soft silver. Each pulse of the light beneath her skin seemed to answer the rhythm of the moon itself. Inside, Caliph watched her from the threshold, the firelight making his eyes look almost feral. "It's begun," he said. She didn't turn. "It began the night you knelt." He stepped closer, his reflection merging with hers in the glass. "Then tonight, we end it." Serenia smiled faintly. "You can't end what was never yours to begin with." The heartseed pulsed faster now. She could hear it, a faint heartbeat beneath her own, ancient and patient. Every breath she took left trails of silver mist in the cold air. "I can feel her inside me," Serenia whispered. "The goddess. She's waking up through me." Caliph's hands clenched at his sides. "Then we wake her on our terms." Leorain entered then, robes trailing smoke. Her eyes were ringed with fatigue and fear. There are tremors throughout Valespire. The moon's influence is spreading. The people think it's a sign of wrath. "It's not wrath," Serenia said quietly. "It's hunger." Caliph turned sharply. "You mean she's feeding through you?" Serenia nodded. "Every heartbeat takes something. A memory, a feeling, a piece of who I was." Leorain pressed a trembling hand to her staff. "If the heartseed finishes blooming, the goddess will take full form. It will tear the vessel apart, and the realm will be remade in her image." Caliph's voice dropped to a growl. "Then we cut it out." The priestess shook her head. "You can't. To harm it is to unmake her, and that would tear the moon from the sky." He slammed his fist against the wall, stone cracking beneath his palm. "Then what can we do?" Leorain looked between them. "One path remains. Complete the bond. If oath and vessel merge completely, the hotseed may stabilize. You would share the burden between you." Serenia stared at her. "Share? Meaning it kills us both? Or saves everything?" The priestess said softly. "Balance always begins with two." Night deepened. The city below shivered in silver light. Caliph stood before the sacred circle again, the same one that had once cracked under his knees. Serenia approached slowly, her gown whispering like wind through leaves. The light beneath her skin pulsed brighter with every step. "Once we begin," she said, "there's no going back." He met her gaze. "I haven't gone back since the day I saw you." They stood opposite each other, moonlight bleeding down between them like a blade. Leorain began the chant, voice trembling, but steady enough to hold the world still. Two, bound by vow, divided by will, united by blood, become what neither can bear alone. The bond ignited. Caliph gasped as his body arched, light exploding from his chest. Serenia's cry joined his, a harmony of agony and rapture. Their veins, lit with silver fire, twining across their arms, spiraling upward to the moon. The chamber shook. The crescent crack on the floor widened, glowing as though the earth itself were exhaling light. "Hold it!" Leorain shouted. "If one breaks, both fall." Caliph reached out, grasping Serenia's hands. Their palms met, and in that touch, time folded. He saw her childhood, the years of silence, the nights she hid, her unawakened wolf beneath shame. She saw his throne, his loneliness, the centuries of inherited duty that had hollowed him into iron. Every secret, every sorrow, every scar laid bare. The bond burned hotter until pain turned to light. Then silence. When the light faded, they were both on their knees, breathless, skin marked by faint crescent scars that pulsed like living moons. Leoraine stared, weeping softly. It worked. The heartseed is stable. Serenia touched her chest, feeling the rhythm within. It's not gone, she whispered. But it's calm. Caliph leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. We did it. She smiled, tired but luminous. We changed the terms. Then the world shifted again. A soft laugh echoed through the chamber. Female, ancient, and amused. You think you've changed me? The voice said, No, my children. You've given me a face. The moonlight flared through the window, swirling into form. A woman stepped from the light, tall and radiant, her eyes pure silver. Seluna, the moon goddess. Lioraine fell to her knees. Caliph rose, sword drawn out of instinct, though he knew it was useless. Serenia stood, the glow in her skin mirroring Seluna's. You've taken enough, she said quietly. No more. Seluna smiled, 1,000 stars burning behind her teeth. You misunderstand. I do not take, I choose. And you? She looked at Serenia. I chose perfectly, Tsung. She turned her gaze to Caliph. And you? Oath. Your purpose was never to rule. It was to kneel long enough for her to rise. The floor split again. Light poured upward, swallowing the throne hall above. Seluna raised her hand. The age of men ends tonight. Serenia stepped forward, her eyes blazing gold. Not if I end you first. The goddess smiled. Then let's see which of us was born divine. Seluna extended her hand, and the heartseed within Serenia flared to life, tearing her eyes open with celestial fire. Caliph lunged forward, but the light swallowed them both. When the brilliance died, Serenia stood alone. The moon was gone from the sky, and so was Caliph. The night the moon vanished, the world forgot how to sleep. For 7 days, dawn refused to come. Crops wilted. Wolves no longer shifted beneath the stars. Children were born without the cry of life, their eyes opening to a world without rhythm. And in the high citadel of Valespear, the new queen did not rest. Serenia sat upon a throne of stone that pulsed faintly beneath her palms, every heartbeat echoing through the veins of the palace itself. Her eyes, once amber, now glowed with a dull gold, neither mortal nor divine. The heartseed still lived inside her, contained, but restless. Each night, she dreamt of Caliph's voice calling through the light. Each morning, she woke with blood on her lips from whispering his name in her sleep. The court called her the Queen of Silence. They thought it reverence, it was grief. Valespire Dodds scholars claimed the tides no longer moved because the goddess was dead. The priests claimed the tides waited for her rebirth. Serenia knew neither was true. The moon wasn't gone. It was inside her. Every time she looked into still water, she saw it. Silver light rippling under her reflection, waiting, watching. On the 7th night, she summoned Leoraine. The priestess entered the chamber slowly, staff lowered in respect. but her eyes full of questions she didn't dare ask. "Tell me," Serenia said, her voice smooth as smoke. "Where does light go when it dies?" Leorian bowed her head. "Into memory, my queen." "Then I must find memory," Serenia said, "and pull him out." The priestess froze. "You mean Caliph?" "He didn't die. The hot seed took him. I saw it. The hot seed devoured what was mortal." Leorian whispered. "He became part of the balance. You break that. You break everything we saved." Serenia's smile was thin and terrible. "Then we start breaking." That night, she entered the moon chamber alone. No guards, no light but her own. The mirror they had shattered still lay in shards across the floor. When she stepped inside, each fragment flickered to life, showing flashes of memory. Calith's laughter, his command, his surrender. One piece reflected her differently. A faint silhouette behind her shoulder, silver eyes watching. "Calith?" she whispered. The reflection blinked. Then it spoke. "You shouldn't be here." Her heart stopped. "Where are you?" "In the space between Isha'el," the voice said. "Between oath and vessel, between what was given and what remains." "I can bring you back," she said, kneeling before the shard. "I can rebuild the bond." "No," the reflection murmured. "If you open it again, Seluna returns." "I'm the seal now, Serenia. I'm the cage that keeps her gone." Tears burned down her cheeks. "Then let the world burn. I'll follow you through it." His voice softened. "If you love me, don't." But the shard in her hand pulsed, faint light bleeding through her fingers. And the hot seed inside her answered with a matching glow. Love, it seemed, was a command the universe never learned to refuse. By the 10th day, thunder rolled again, not from the heavens, but beneath the earth. The rivers began to glow faintly silver. The stars reappeared in the sky one by one, trembling like eyes reopening after too long in darkness. The people rejoiced. Leorian did not. "The balance is shifting," she warned. "The hot seed is feeding again. You've opened something." Serenia stood on the citadel's highest balcony, wind tangling her hair, eyes fixed on the horizon where a faint pale curve shimmered. Half a moon, reborn. "He's calling," she said simply. "My queen," Leorian said, voice breaking. "That isn't him. It's her. I don't care." She raised her hands and light erupted from her palms. The half-moon pulsed in the sky, answering her gesture, its color bleeding slowly from silver to crimson. Vale spire trembled. Wolves howled without knowing why. The sky cracked open, and from that wound came a whisper, soft, cold, familiar. Oath undone, vessel undone, begin again. That night, as the storm raged above the palace, Serenia descended into the catacombs beneath the throne. She walked past murals depicting every monarch of the bloodline, men and women who'd bowed to the goddess and been devoured by her promises. At the end of the corridor stood the ancient seal, a circle of obsidian engraved with the first covenant. It pulsed faintly, as if something within it breathed. She knelt before it, pressing her hand to the stone. "You took him from me. You took my world. Now I take you." The hot seed's light flared within her chest, silver veins crawling up her throat. The seal began to crack, whispering the same word over and over. "Balance, balance, balance." Serenia's voice rose above it. There is no balance without him. The seal split wide open. From its heart poured silver fire, blinding, beautiful, merciless. When it cleared, the throne room above was gone. The city lights below flickered out, and on the horizon, the moon had returned in full. But not as it once was. It was bleeding. In the sky, crimson light spiraled into the shape of a crown. Within it, two shadows moved, one divine, one lost. And in the silence that followed, Serenia heard Calith's voice again. Only this time it wasn't pleading. It was calling her to join him. The crimson moon hung low over Valespire, pulsing like a wound that refused to close. Every heartbeat of light painted the world in shades of grief. Temples cracked, rivers shimmered red, and the wolves below howled in pain instead of prayer. And in the center of it all, Serenia stood at the edge of the shattered seal, her body glowing faintly, her voice calm in a way only despair could make it. "Calith," she whispered, "I'm coming." She stepped into the light. The air within was not air at all. It was memory. Each breath tasted of salt and ash. Each step echoed with her own laughter from lifetimes ago. She moved through corridors of suspended stars, where fragments of forgotten moments floated. Calith's crown, his hand, the curve of his smile when he forgot he was king. At the heart of it, she found him, or what remained. Calith stood barefoot in a sea of reflected light, his eyes silver fire, his body half shadow, half divine. Chains of moonlight wrapped his wrists, not to bind him, but to anchor him between worlds. He turned slowly, and for a heartbeat, the light softened. Serenia. Her name in his voice broke something inside her. "You're alive." "I am everything but alive," he said. His smile was both apology and hunger. "The goddess left me her echo. I hold her throne so she cannot rise." She stepped closer, tears streaking her cheeks. "You can't bear that alone." He shook his head. "If you touch me, you'll take it all. The goddess, the balance, the light. It will burn you." "Then let it," she whispered. "We've burned before." He laughed softly, a sound that cracked the silence. "You always did mistake ruin for love. And you always mistook love for duty," she answered. The air trembled between them, the heart seed in her chest responding like a drumbeat. The moonlight that wrapped his chains began to pulse in rhythm. Caleb took one step forward. The floor beneath them shifted, rippling like water. "If you cross this line," he said, "you end everything." She smiled through her tears. "Then let it end beautifully." When their hands met, the world convulsed. Light surged between them, white, then gold, then crimson. The chain snapped, and Calith's scream echoed through eternity. Serenia felt her body lift from the ground as the heart seed tore open, spilling its power through her veins. Seluna's voice thundered through the void. "Foolish children, you cannot cage light. You can only become it." The sky around them fractured. From every shard of moonlight, a form began to take shape. A woman's silhouette, vast and radiant, her face both theirs and not theirs. Seluna, reborn. "Do you see?" the goddess whispered, her voice carried on every beam. "You were never meant to love. You were meant to remember what I was." Caleb stepped in front of Serenia, his body blazing silver. Then remember this. He drew her close, pressing his forehead to hers. When I kneel again, it will not be to you. And with that, he turned the last of his light inward, forcing it into Serenya's heart. The heart seed flared, once, twice, and exploded. Seluna screamed. The light consumed her form, shattering it into 1,000 streams that scattered across the stars. When the glow faded, Serenia was on her knees, the crimson sky dimming to pale gold. Calith's chains were gone. So was he. Only a faint silver mark burned on the floor where he had stood. The moon above steadied, neither bleeding nor whole, balanced. Lioraean's voice echoed faintly through the void. The seal is restored. Serenia looked up, tears glowing like molten glass. No, the seal isn't restored. She placed her palm against the mark, watching. It's alive. Because inside her, where the heart seed once burned, a faint pulse still beat. Not divine, not human, but his. Calith lived within her now. Every breath she took carried his warmth. Every silence his voice. She looked toward the new dawn rising over Valespire, the first real sunlight in years. I'll keep your light, she said softly, even if it burns me. As the people emerged from their homes, they saw a sky reborn, silver clouds rimmed with crimson light, and a queen standing barefoot on the highest balcony, her hair streaming like night itself. When she raised her hand, the light obeyed. The moon shivered, flickered, and for the first time since its fall, bowed to her will. Serenia closed her eyes, hearing Calith's voice one last time. The throne was never mine. Then it's mine for both of us. The wind carried her answer away, but the sky remembered it. From the horizon, a faint shimmer appeared, a figure walking across the light of the sea, silver-eyed, unbound by shadow. Calith was returning, but something in his gaze was not his own. The goddess had not died. She had changed vessels. The sea of light stretched endlessly before her, its surface reflecting a sky too still to be real. Serenia stood at the water's edge, her reflection rippling between two worlds, the mortal queen she had become, and the divine vessel she could no longer deny. From across the horizon, a figure approached, walking on the mirrored water as though gravity itself remembered his name. Calith. But not the Calith she knew. His silver eyes now shimmered with threads of crimson. His once warm aura had cooled to something divine and distant. The goddess lived inside him now, Seluna reborn in the body of the king who had defied her. Serenia, he said, his voice layered. Two tones, two souls speaking at once. She felt the heart seed inside her stir, that faint echo of his life still entwined with hers. It pulsed once, warning her. He isn't alone in there. I didn't call you back, she said quietly. I buried you with peace. Calith smiled, but the curve of it was wrong to say. Peace is only the pause between worship and war. Seluna's voice spoke through him, soft, seductive, terrifying. You hold what I lost. The heart seed's echo. Return it, and your suffering ends. Serenia shook her head. You mistake me for the girl who begged gods for mercy. Calith's hand twitched, conflict flashing through his gaze. For an instant she saw him, the man, not the divinity, fighting to surface. Run! His voice rasped beneath hers. Before she... The light around him flared, cutting him off. Seluna smiled through his lips. He says, still mine. Every vow he made bound him tighter. Even his love for you was worshipped by another name. Serenya's tears glistened. Then let me show you what love really is. The sea erupted as their powers collided, silver flame against crimson radiance. Each wave was a heartbeat, each spark a prayer. The world itself trembled, caught between them. Serenia summoned the heartseed's energy, silver veins burning up her arms, eyes blazing with molten gold. You use love as a leash, she shouted, but love is defiance, love chooses. Seluna's laughter shook the sky. Then choose how you'll die. Calith's body moved before his will, his hand reaching out, divine light lancing toward her. The blast struck, and pain seared through Serenya's chest. She fell to her knees, gasping. The light within her flickered, neither extinguished nor yielding. She pressed a hand to her heart, whispering through clenched teeth, "You can take my body, but not my bond." Her mark glowed brighter than before, every ounce of the heartseed's remaining power surging upward. Silver met crimson, and for a heartbeat, the world was nothing but light and sound and memory. When the glare faded, they stood once more, only a few paces apart, both trembling, both half destroyed. Calith's divine radiance flickered. The goddess's control weakened. He looked at her, anguish clear in his eyes. "She won't let go," he whispered. "The only way is if you..." "Kill you?" Serenia finished softly. "I could never." His hand reached for hers. "Then she'll take you too." "I know." She stepped forward, closing the gap. Their fingers intertwined, sparks bleeding from their skin. The heartseed inside her flared violently, the pulse of two lifetimes colliding. "Then we burn together," she said. He shook his head. "No, Serenia. You live. You always were the stronger half." He pressed his forehead against hers, the world falling away. "Remember me as light, not shadow." Before she could answer, Calith pushed the last of his divine energy into her chest. The force threw her backward, into the sky, into light so blinding it broke language itself. His body crumbled, threads of silver dissolving into the air. Seluna's scream echoed through creation, then died into silence. The crimson moon shattered. When Serenia opened her eyes, she lay in the ruins of Valespire. The city glowed faintly under the first true dawn in centuries. The air was still, the sky clean. Calith was gone. But the mark on her palm, the crescent scar they once shared, now shimmered faintly, neither gold nor silver, but both. She rose slowly. The people knelt as she passed, whispering her name not as queen, but as something greater. Serenia Lightborn, they called her, the keeper of the moon. She walked to the citadel's edge and looked toward the sea. A faint shimmer of silver light danced on the horizon, soft, eternal, familiar. She smiled, her voice a whisper carried on the wind. "I remember you as light." And above, where the moon had been, a single star burned brighter than all the rest. Years later, songs would call it the age of the twin flames. They said the goddess had been reborn, not as deity, but as memory. And the moon never rose the same way twice again, its shape forever changing, as though still trying to remember the lovers who saved it. In every shadow of light, his reflection lingered, and in every prayer, her name ended where his began. As the last verse fades, the screen lingers on the silver horizon, two stars orbiting each other endlessly. A faint whisper breaks the silence, barely audible. Balance begins with two. The light chose love, and love chose ruin. Subscribe for the next royal tragedy, and tell me in the comments, after everything they lost, would you still believe in forever?